Oh, I mean, there were so many of those that I've almost forgotten because there were so many. And it was actually one of the biggest challenges for me was to bring focus to each object and really think deeply about what the story is I want to tell about this object. And then I tried to bring some kind of theme into every chapter. So, with the wheel, my theme was why we should reinvent the wheel, because we always hear this expression, don't reinvent the wheel. And my argument is, if we hadn't reinvented the wheel, even today we would still be able to make very nice pottery, but we wouldn't have any cars or trains or anything, because the wheel was actually invented for pottery. And my theme in the spring chapter is about versatility. So that's versatility in the sense of what a spring actually is, the different shapes it can come into, and then the huge range of applications that you can use springs in. And also, of course, subsequently, what the impact of those inventions are. So the spring, I think, yeah, is a great example. I start off with weaponry. So I think the first example of springs in human history are the bow and arrow, like the bow of the bow and arrow, because you're basically deforming a stretchy material or an elastic material. You store energy into it, and then you use that energy in a way that you want to. So that's the kind of the principle behind the spring. And I talk about the story of Genghis Khan, who set up one of the biggest empires in history. And one of his very kind of unique weapons was the bow that he used. The Mongolian bow was very well known for being extraordinarily light, having a really quick, far range. And so they could wreak a lot of destruction with this light, small, portable weapon. And of course, we have to think about all the impacts of engineering. Of course, engineering can be a force for good, but it can also be a force for destruction. And I think it's really, really important that we remember that as engineers. I then move on, as you say, talking about clocks and timekeeping. And again, we can see the idea of time as a positive and a negative, I would say. So nowadays, how many of us are like checking our phone or clocks or watches every few minutes? We want to know exactly what time it is, need to go on to the next thing. So it's almost like our whole lives are driven around time. But there was a time and point in history when that just wasn't the case. And people used to have really inaccurate, imprecise timekeeping. And so I thought a lot about kind of the impacts of that. And then at the extreme other end of the scale with springs, I talk about springs that are so big that they can wrap around my leg. And those are the kinds that are used in structures. So under earthquake-prone buildings, for example, or in concert halls, we actually suspend big structures, or even just like a concert hall within a bigger building with springs, so that it absorbs vibrations and either stops the building from destroying itself in an earthquake, or you can create a beautiful silence in a concert hall.
Yeah,